Every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. You've noticed that some moments feel more real than others. Not louder, not more dramatic, just clearer. And once you notice that difference, it doesn't quite leave you. This video is about that noticing, not as an idea, but as something you've already lived. Because most people aren't unaware in the way we usually mean. They function, they think, they decide. But there's another kind of sleep, a quieter one. And almost no one talks about it directly, not because it's hidden, but because it feels normal from the inside. For the next while, we're not trying to explain anything. We're just staying with a certain perspective long enough for it to recognize itself in you. If that sounds familiar already, you're in the right place. Most people move through their day assuming their reactions are caused by what happens to them. The message, the delay, the tone in someone's voice, the look they didn't get back. It all feels external, obvious, justified. But there's often a quiet moment afterward, a moment most people skip over. That subtle sense of, I've been here before. Same feeling, different scene, different people, same internal shape. It's easy to miss because life keeps moving, and because the mind is very good at giving reasons. But when you slow down just enough, you might notice something strange. Your life doesn't change nearly as much as it looks like it does. The settings change, the names change, the details change. But the state you're moving from stays remarkably consistent. This isn't a criticism. It's not a flaw. It's how sleep works, not unconsciousness. Familiarity. Most people are asleep to their own state because it feels like me. And when something feels like you don't question it. You defend it. You justify it. You build a life around it. You call it personality, or history, or realism. But sometimes, usually in quiet moments, that sense loosens. Not enough to wake up fully, just enough to feel the edge of something. A sense that you're participating in a pattern rather than being trapped in circumstances. If you felt that even once, you know what this is pointing toward. And we'll come back to that feeling later. There's more to it than it seems. Sleep, in this sense, isn't ignorance, it's identification. It's believing that what you're experiencing is what you are, that your reactions are you, that your moods are you, that your interpretations are you. But notice something. Your reactions change, your moods shift, your interpretations evolve. Yet there's something steady underneath all of that, something that notices the change, that noticing doesn't panic, it doesn't rush, it doesn't argue, it simply sees. And most people barely acknowledge it, not because it's small, but because it's quiet. The loudest voice usually wins attention, and the noticing voice doesn't compete, it waits. You can see this in everyday situations. Someone says something that lands wrong, instant reaction, emotion, story. But a few minutes later, or a few hours, there's often a softer realization. Maybe I didn't need to take that so personally. That realization didn't come from effort. It came from space. And space is the beginning of waking up. Not dramatic waking, not sudden clarity, just the sense that you are not required to believe every internal movement. This is where most people turn back, because it feels destabilizing. If you're not your reactions, then what are you? If your interpretations aren't reality, then what is? Those questions don't demand answers right away. They're not meant to. They're meant to create a small pause, a pause long enough for perception to shift. And perception is always the first thing that changes. Here's something rarely said plainly. Reality doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to how you're positioned, not physically, internally. Your state is like a lens, not something you hold, something you look through. And when you're asleep, you don't know you're looking through it. You assume it is the world. That's why effort often feels exhausting. You push, you plan, you adjust, but the same kinds of situations keep appearing. Different forms, same friction. That's not failure, it's consistency. Reality is very consistent. It reflects state with remarkable patience, not as reward, not as punishment, just as feedback. And feedback only feels painful when it's misunderstood. Most people assume suffering means something went wrong, but what if it simply means something is slightly misaligned? Not broken, not doomed, just angled a little off from what feels natural. Think of how your body tells you when you're sitting wrong. At first it's subtle, a tension, a restlessness. Ignore it long enough and it becomes pain. not because your body is cruel, but because it's precise. Consciousness works the same way. It signals quietly first. Most people are too distracted to notice the signal. That's sleep, and noticing the signal doesn't require fixing anything, just listening. Let's pause here for a moment. Not to reflect, not to analyze, just to notice how this feels to hear. If something in you softens slightly, even for a second, that matters. That softening is awareness, recognizing itself, and that recognition doesn't need to be held. It already knows how to stay. Around this point, some people feel a strange mix of familiarity and distance, like they've heard this before, not in words, but in experience. That's not accidental. We'll return to why that familiarity keeps showing up. Most people think awakening is about adding something. New beliefs, new practices, new understanding. But what if it's actually about subtracting identification? Not losing personality, not losing desire. Just loosening the grip on the assumption that your current state is the only possible one. You've already experienced different versions of yourself. You've been calmer, more present, less reactive, not permanently, but clearly. Those weren't moments of becoming someone else. They were moments of alignment, moments where effort dropped and things flowed more naturally. Sleep isn't being in the wrong state. It's assuming the current state is fixed. Awakening begins the moment you realize states are movable, not through force, through permission. And permission comes from understanding, not trying. This is why pressure never works for long. Pressure is misalignment trying to fix itself. Alignment doesn't push, it adjusts, subtly, almost invisibly. And reality responds instantly, though not always dramatically. Sometimes the response is internal first, a sense of ease where there was tension, a neutral reaction where there was charge. Those are signs of waking, not because something spiritual happened, but because perception shifted, and perception always leads behavior, not the other way around. There's another layer most people miss. You're not moving through one fixed life, you're moving through versions. Parallel variations of you, each aligned with a slightly different state. This isn't theoretical. You feel it when you say things like, "That version of me wouldn't react this way anymore." You're not imagining that. You're sensing contrast between states. Sleep is assuming you're locked into one track. Awareness shows you the tracks are adjacent, and the shift between them doesn't require struggle. It requires resonance. You don't jump tracks by forcing change. You drift when alignment changes. That's why trying to fix yourself often backfires. It reinforces the idea that something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. You're just tuned to a particular frequency of experience, and frequencies can be adjusted. Gently. If you're still listening, notice something else. You're not waiting for an answer. You're not trying to figure out what to do. You're simply following the feeling of recognition. That's not accidental, and it connects to something we'll circle back to later. Here's a quiet truth. Most people don't wake up all at once. They wake up in fragments, moments of clarity surrounded by long stretches of habit. And that's okay. Forgetting is intentional. If you remembered everything all the time, experience would collapse. You wouldn't be able to explore, or discover, or choose. Sleep allows immersion. Waking allows navigation. Life needs both. The problem isn't sleep. It's believing sleep is the only option. You don't need to stay awake constantly. You just need to recognize when you're dreaming. And dreams feel real until you notice them. Then they loosen, not disappear, just soften. Let's reset the attention gently, not by focusing harder, by noticing the space between sentences. That space has been here the whole time. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, it simply holds. That holding is what you actually are. Everything else moves within it. As awareness grows, something interesting happens. You stop needing life to prove anything. Validation loses urgency. Outcomes feel less heavy. Not because you stop caring, but because care comes from alignment instead of tension. You still act, you still choose, but the emotional charge drops. And when the charge drops, reality rearranges more easily, not magically, naturally. Most people never notice this shift because they're focused on results. But results are downstream, state is upstream, and you've been swimming upstream without realizing it. Not because you were wrong, because you were asleep to the current. There's a moment, usually quiet, when someone realizes, I don't actually need to solve myself. That realization doesn't lead to passivity. It leads to clarity. You stop forcing growth, and growth happens anyway, like a body healing once the strain is removed. This is why alignment feels effortless after you stop trying to align. Effort was never the point. Perception was. Around this time, people often feel a subtle grief, not sadness, more like recognition of how much energy was spent resisting what was never broken. That grief doesn't linger. It dissolves into relief. And relief creates space. Space is where new versions of self emerge. Not invented, remembered. If any part of you wants to say, yes, this is exactly it, that's not agreement, that's resonance. And resonance doesn't need to be defended or explained, it just exists. Now we're approaching a deeper layer, not deeper in complexity, deeper in intimacy. This is where many people quietly turn away, not consciously but subtly, because it asks something simple and unsettling. What if the sense of me you protect so carefully is just a temporary arrangement? Useful, functional, but not permanent, not fixed. Sleep is clinging to the arrangement. Waking is realizing you can rearrange without losing yourself, because the core was never the arrangement. It was the awareness experiencing it, and awareness doesn't need protection. It's already complete. Let's pause again. Notice if your breathing changed. Notice if your jaw relaxed. These aren't techniques. They're signs that something is aligning on its own, and that's always how it works. Some people ask, why doesn't everyone notice this? The answer is simple. They're not supposed to, yet. Not as hierarchy, as timing. Awakening isn't better. It's just different. A quieter way of moving through the same world, and it's happening individually, quietly, everywhere. No announcements, no milestones, just people realizing they don't have to carry everything so tightly. And when enough people do that, reality shifts naturally, not through effort, through coherence. If this resonates, you might notice it showing up later, in how you react, in what you no longer argue with. That's how integration happens, not through memory, through changed response. We're nearing another point where things connect more clearly, not with answers, with recognition, and we'll let that recognition unfold in its own time. The most subtle sleep is believing you're late, behind, catching up, missing something. That belief creates tension. Tension narrows perception. Narrow perception reinforces sleep, but there's nowhere to arrive, only states to inhabit, and you're always exactly where your state places you. No mistakes, just feedback. As this settles, you might feel less urgency to name it. That's good. Names are useful early. Later, they get in the way. What matters is the felt sense, the quiet confidence that nothing is fundamentally wrong, that you're allowed to relax into awareness, that life doesn't need to be wrestled into place, it responds when you soften. If you feel like sharing, some people notice this recognition early in life, others later. There's no pattern that matters, only the noticing itself. Now, without closing anything, let's stay with the simplest truth. You are not here to wake up permanently, you're here to notice when you're asleep, and choose gently, again and again. That's enough. That's always been enough. The conversation doesn't end here. It continues in how you listen to your own reactions, in how quickly you return to center, in how little you need to prove. And if that feels familiar, you were never asleep in the way you thought, just immersed, and now noticing. There's a subtle shift that happens once you begin noticing states instead of stories. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like insight. It feels like less resistance. You still have thoughts. You still have preferences. You still move through the same world. But something stops gripping so tightly, and that's usually when people realize something unexpected. They weren't tired because life was hard. They were tired because they were constantly holding a position, defending a version of themselves, maintaining an internal posture, reacting as if everything required a response. Sleep isn't ignorance, it's effort without awareness. When awareness returns, effort naturally reduces. Not because you decide to relax, but because there's nothing left to hold up. Most people think clarity comes from understanding more, but clarity often comes from needing less explanation. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start noticing, this feels familiar. That familiarity isn't fate. It's alignment repeating itself. Reality doesn't repeat lessons. It reflects states. And when a state stays the same, the reflection does too. Different faces, same emotional echo. Once you see that pattern, something clicks quietly. You're not being tested, you're being mirrored, and mirrors don't judge, they just show. Here's a line most people never consider, but feel immediately when they hear it. You are not inside reality. Reality is inside your experience. That's not philosophy. It's observable. Everything you know of the world appears through perception, through interpretation, through sensation. And perception is not passive. It selects, it highlights, it filters. Sleep is forgetting that filter exists. Waking up doesn't remove it. It lets you notice when it's shaping what you see. This is why two people can live the same situation and experience entirely different realities. Not because one is right and the other is wrong, because they're tuned differently. Different emotional frequencies, different assumptions, different internal postures. Reality meets them where they are, always has. Let's reset attention gently again. Not by focusing on the words, by noticing the calm between them. That calm isn't created by understanding, it's revealed when effort drops, and it's always been there. At this stage, some people feel a quiet discomfort, not fear, more like exposure, as if something internal is being seen without being named. That discomfort isn't a warning, it's a transition. It's what happens when identification loosens before a new orientation settles in, like standing up after sitting too long. The sensation passes. What remains is steadiness. Here's something important to notice. You don't wake up by rejecting your old self. You wake up by including it without believing it defines you. Your habits don't disappear. Your history doesn't vanish. But they stop being the center. They become context instead of identity. That's a big difference. Context informs, identity confines. Most people live inside their context without knowing it. They call it how things are. But how things are is always state-dependent. Change the state and the same world feels different. Not improved, different. This is where effort often sneaks back in. People sense alignment and immediately try to hold it. They tense around calm. They try to maintain clarity. But clarity doesn't need maintenance. It's not a state you cling to. It's what appears when clinging stops. Sleep is trying to stabilize experience. Awareness allows experience to move, and movement is natural. There's a reason this feels like remembering, because awareness isn't new, it's primary. What's new is noticing when you forgot, and forgetting isn't failure, it's part of immersion. You came here to forget, partially, to take things seriously enough that they matter. Waking up doesn't remove meaning, it removes unnecessary weight. Around this point, people often realize something surprising. They don't actually want dramatic change, they want coherence. They want their inner state and outer actions to feel aligned. They want less friction, less self-contradiction, less effort spent managing reactions. That desire isn't ambition, it's resonance calling itself home. Here's a soft truth. Alignment feels boring to the part of you addicted to tension, but nourishing to the part of you that's been carrying everything. And the second part has been waiting a long time. We're approaching one of those moments where things connect more deeply later. Not as a payoff, as a widening. Keep that in the background. There's more unfolding than what's being said right now. Another misconception quietly dissolves here. Waking up doesn't make you detached. It makes you less defended. You feel more, not less, but without the charge, without the reflex to interpret every sensation as threat or meaning. Emotion becomes information instead of identity, and information can move. Identity resists movement. Let's reorient attention again. Notice how you're listening, not the words, the listening itself. That listening doesn't need agreement, it doesn't need belief, it just receives. That's awareness, simple, uncomplicated, always present. At some point you may notice that you're less interested in convincing others, not because you've withdrawn, but because you no longer need external validation to confirm internal clarity. That's not superiority, it's grounding. You stop arguing with reality, and reality stops arguing back. This is where the idea of parallel versions becomes practical, not abstract. Every time you respond differently to a familiar trigger, you shift versions, not timelines with fireworks, subtle tracks, same life, different feel. And you've already done this countless times. You've outgrown reactions without effort. You've looked back and thought, I wouldn't respond that way anymore. That wasn't willpower, that was alignment shifting. Sleep is thinking change must be forced. Awareness notices that change happens when resistance ends. That's why trying to be awake never works. Awareness isn't a performance, it's a release. Around minute 10 of listening, something usually happens, not intellectually, physiologically. The nervous system settles, that's not coincidence. The body recognizes safety when effort drops, and safety allows perception to widen. That widening is what people often mistake for insight, but it's actually permission. Permission to experience without defending. There's something deeply stabilizing about realizing you don't have to finish yourself. You're not a project, you're a process. And processes don't rush, they unfold. Let's pause in a different way this time. Notice if there's anything you're waiting for this video to give you. An answer, a turning point, a final clarity. And then notice what happens when you let go of that expectation. What remains is enough. It always was. Most people miss awakening because they're waiting for certainty. But certainty belongs to the mind. Awareness is comfortable with ambiguity. Not confusion, ambiguity. The open space where perception can adjust. Certainty freezes states. Ambiguity allows movement. This is why suffering feels heavy. Not because pain exists, but because resistance tries to lock experience into meaning. What does this say about me? What does this mean for my future? Those questions tighten the lens. Awareness loosens it. And when the lens loosens, suffering loses its grip. Not immediately, gradually, naturally. There's a quiet confidence that emerges here. Not confidence in outcomes, confidence in navigation. A sense that whatever arises can be met, not fixed, not avoided, met. And meeting experience fully dissolves most of its weight. Another gentle attention reset. Notice the simplicity of breathing. Not controlling it, just noticing it happening. That's how awareness works. Life is already moving. You don't have to push it forward. As this continues, you may notice less interest in defining yourself. Labels feel optional, stories feel flexible. You don't lose identity, you gain mobility. And mobility is freedom. This is also where compassion deepens. Not as a moral stance, as understanding. You see sleep everywhere, not as judgment, as recognition. Everyone is acting from their current state, just like you were, just like you sometimes still do. And that recognition softens everything. We're moving toward another retention moment now, not because something big is coming, but because this thread connects further than it appears. Let it sit. We'll return to it. A subtle but important realization emerges here. Awareness doesn't eliminate preference. You still choose, you still move toward what feels aligned. But the choice comes from resonance, not fear, from clarity, not urgency. That difference changes everything. Most people think awakening means always feeling good. It doesn't. It means feeling honestly, without amplification, without suppression. Emotion moves through instead of getting stuck, and movement prevents accumulation. That's why aligned people seem lighter, not because they avoid difficulty, but because they don't store it. Another reorientation. Notice the absence of pressure in this moment. That absence isn't created by words. It's revealed when resistance pauses. And it's always available. If you feel like something is being gently reorganized inside you, that's accurate. Not rearranged by force, reorganized by recognition. Recognition is the most powerful form of change, because it doesn't fight what is. It sees it clearly, and clarity dissolves distortion. At some point, the idea of still asleep shifts. It stops feeling like an accusation. It feels like compassion. Because sleep isn't wrong. It's necessary for immersion. But awareness gives you the option to wake when it's useful and rest when it's not. That flexibility is mastery, quiet mastery. As we move closer to the later part of this exploration, keep one thing in mind. Nothing here requires belief. Belief is rigid. Perception is flexible. You don't need to accept anything. Just notice what resonates. Resonance is your internal guidance. Always has been. We'll leave this block here, not as a pause, as a continuation. Because whatever is unfolding now isn't happening in the words. It's happening in the space that recognize them. And that space doesn't stop when the video does. There's a point where recognition stops feeling new, not because it's fading, but because it's becoming familiar. And familiarity is where sleep and awakening begin to blur. You start to notice that awareness isn't something you enter, it's something you return to, over and over, in small moments, in how you pause before responding, in how you feel a reaction without needing to act on it, in how silence starts to feel supportive instead of empty. This is usually when people realize something quietly important. They were never actually lost, just focused so tightly on content that they forgot the context. And context changes everything. At this stage, life doesn't suddenly become calm, but it becomes readable. Patterns are easier to see. Emotional weather makes more sense. You stop taking every internal signal as a command. A thought can arise without becoming truth. An emotion can move without becoming identity. That space between experience and reaction grows, not dramatically, just enough. And that just enough is what most people underestimate, because small shifts in perception create large changes in trajectory. Let's slow attention again, not to rest, to notice how much less effort this takes now. Earlier, you may have been listening with anticipation. Now listening feels more like allowing. That change didn't require decision. It happened naturally. That's alignment. Here's something rarely acknowledged. Most people are not afraid of being asleep. They're afraid of what waking up might dissolve. Old motivations, old tensions, old self-images. The part of you that was driven by proving, fixing, or becoming something specific doesn't disappear. It relaxes. And relaxation can feel unfamiliar if tension was your compass. But tension was never guidance. It was friction, and friction always feels urgent. Alignment feels quiet. This is why awakening often looks uneventful from the outside. No big announcements, no radical shifts, just someone who reacts less, listens more, chooses with less noise. That subtlety is its strength, because it integrates. It doesn't disrupt. There's another layer opening here. It's the realization that awareness doesn't oppose sleep. It contains it. You can be aware of being asleep, and that's already waking. You don't need to escape immersion. You just need to notice when you're fully identified with it. That noticing alone loosens the grip. Most people wait for certainty before trusting a new orientation. But certainty comes later. First comes resonance. That sense of, this feels more like me, not better, more accurate. That's how alignment announces itself, quietly. Let's reset attention in a different way. Notice how you're not trying to remember everything that's been said. You don't need to. What matters isn't the sequence, it's the state being evoked. States are remembered through feeling, not memory. And once a state is familiar, you can return to it without effort. There's a gentle confidence that grows here, not confidence in knowledge, confidence in presence, a sense that whatever arises can be met from awareness instead of reaction. That doesn't make life predictable. It makes it navigable, and navigation is more valuable than control. This is also where the idea of parallel selves becomes less abstract. You start to feel the difference between responding from alignment and responding from habit. Same situation, different inner posture, and the outcome changes accordingly. Not because reality obeys you, because reality reflects you, always has. Here's the third soft moment of connection. What's unfolding here isn't limited to this conversation. It continues later, in moments that seem unrelated. You'll notice it when a familiar trigger feels slightly weaker, or when you pause where you used to react. That's the thread reconnecting. As we move deeper, something important becomes clear. Awareness doesn't remove challenges. It changes your relationship to them. A challenge stops feeling like a verdict. It feels like information. And information is neutral. It doesn't attack, it informs. Another attention reorientation. Notice the simplicity of this moment. No conclusion needed, no takeaway required. Just experience happening. That's enough. Many people assume awakening is about becoming special, but it's actually about becoming ordinary again, not numbed, natural, less filtered through tension and story, more direct. Children have this before identity solidifies. Adults rediscover it when identity loosens. That rediscovery feels like coming home, not to a place, to a way of being. There's a quiet humility that appears here, not shrinking, honest. You stop assuming you know what something means before it unfolds. You allow life to show itself, and life responds well to being allowed. This is also where comparison loses relevance. Not because you're above it, because your reference point shifts inward. You stop measuring progress against others. You notice alignment instead. Does this feel coherent? Does this feel honest? Those questions don't create pressure. They create clarity. Let's pause attention again. Notice how nothing is being asked of you. No change demanded. No belief required. That absence of demand is intentional, because awareness cannot be forced. It reveals itself when pressure stops. As this continues, you may notice something subtle but powerful. Silence becomes more comfortable. Not empty silence. Alive silence. The kind that holds everything without needing to comment. That silence isn't the absence of thought. It's the absence of struggle with thought. And that changes your entire internal landscape. Here's a realization many people have quietly. They don't actually want to be awake all the time. They want to be able to wake when needed, to step out of reaction when it stops serving, to step back into immersion when it's enjoyable. Flexibility, not permanence. That's balance. Another gentle reset. Notice how your body feels right now. Not analyzing, just noticing. That noticing brings you back into presence without effort. Presence isn't something you create. It's something you notice you never left. As we approach the later part of this exploration, things naturally slow. Not because there's less to say, because awareness doesn't rush. It doesn't need to reach a conclusion. It recognizes itself and rests. That rest isn't passive. It's alert, open, available. If you find yourself wanting this understanding to last, notice that desire gently. Not to suppress it, just to see it. Wanting to hold clarity is another form of tension. Clarity stays when allowed to come and go. Like breath, there's a quiet trust forming here. Trust not in outcomes. Trust in awareness itself. A sense that no matter what arises, awareness will still be here to meet it. That trust is stabilizing. It removes the urgency to control experience. And control was never peace. Another reorientation. Notice how little effort this moment requires. That effortlessness isn't laziness. It's efficiency. Awareness is the most efficient state there is, because nothing is resisted. As we move toward the ending without closing anything, one thing becomes clear. You don't need to label this. You don't need to define what kind of awakening this is. Definitions belong to the mind. Recognition belongs to experience. And experience is already happening. If there's an impulse to share how this recognition shows up for you, not as explanation but as lived sense, that's natural. Not because it needs validation, because recognition likes to recognize itself in others, quietly, without urgency. We won't end this. Because awareness doesn't end, it just keeps noticing itself in new ways. In reactions softening, in pauses appearing, in effort dissolving where it's no longer needed. And long after the words stop, that noticing will still be here. Not louder, clearer, still unfolding.